Hello Channel NITT viewers, I am DS and welcome to another episode on Channel NITT. So in one of our previous episodes, we talked about the compatibility between INTJ and ENTJ when it comes to love. So I am going to continue in this series to talk about the compatibility between the ENTJ and other MBTI types. So featured in this video today is the INFJ. So of course, the points I'm going to share in this video are based on my perception as an ENTJ. So viewer discretion, okay? And of course, as an INFJ, you will tend to see the ENTJ very differently. But the purpose of this video is to share my ENTJ viewpoint as I look at an INFJ. Of course, the INTJ and the ENTJ are actually very similar, though they are also very different. So you can also consider this video to be somewhat like an INFJ versus INTJ compatibility video. Now, one thing to note first is that, curiously, although the INFJ and the INTJ are supposed to be very rare types, however, I have a lot of INFJ and INTJ friends or people that I know. So I suspect that this is because the NI, which is the introverted intuition that we all possess as ENTJs, INFJs and INTJs, seem to attract each other. Anyway, not to sidetrack any further, I am going to talk about the ENTJ and INFJ compatibility. Personally, I feel that the INFJ is one of the most interesting MBTI types, and as a friend, I really like this type. However, as a potential partner, I have identified 4 landmines between the ENTJ and the INFJ. So I'm going to share with you what are the 4 potential problems that these two types might face together if they were a couple. And I am speaking from the ENTJ's point of view. So potential problem number 1. One of the problems I have with the INFJ is that they tend to be very indirect when speaking. They might give you hints, they might nudge you along instead of telling you their intentions directly. So from the ENTJ's point of view, this can be frustrating because the ENTJ is really straightforward. If you want to eat grapes, then I can go and buy them. But you do not start off by saying, "Are you hungry?" You know? And slowly direct me to talk about grapes. However, I do understand that maybe from the INFJ's point of view, they really want you to learn something as you go through the entire process. So it's just like the maths teacher asking you to write down your full working when presenting a maths problem, when actually you just need to read the question and you could perform the mental sums inside your head and you come to the answer directly. So in this regard, I believe that the INFJ and the ENTJ may have very different approaches when it comes to processing information and the presentation of information. The ENTJ really values efficiency, so go straight to the point. Let's come to potential landmine or potential problem number 2. So potential problem number 2 between the ENTJ and the INFJ is that the ENTJ tends to rationalize feelings a lot. So when we fail at something, we just say that we pick ourselves up, brush it off, and try again. When we meet with a failure, we will tell ourselves, get over it. And usually, we may also encourage our partner to get over it. However, INFJs cannot get over it. They feel that their feelings are trivialized. So I believe that from the INFJ's point of view, you cannot deny their feelings. And it is very hard for the ENTJ or even the INTJ to do so because they usually might deny their feelings, especially the ENTJ, because they are FI inferior. So I can imagine in a typical INFJ and ENTJ love situation, the INFJ might ask the ENTJ, "What do you mean there's nothing wrong? Something is wrong." But really, the ENTJ might think that nothing is wrong. So this is a problem because the ENTJ is very used to rationalize feelings, very used to rationalize problems and failures. So to them, it's just like nothing. So presume we are married or we are living together and my mother seems to reprimand you for something. The ENTJ will say, just ignore her. But the INFJ say, no, this is a serious problem. We have to settle this. So the problem in this case cannot be ignored. But from the ENTJ's point of view, just ignore her lah. So this is really a big potential landmine, okay? Let's come to problem number 3. So a potential third problem that might arise between the INFJ and the ENTJ is that the INFJ's tertiary function is TI, hence the INFJ's blind spot, which is the 7th function, is TE, which happens to be the ENTJ's dominant function. In other words, in simpler terms, the INFJ may be very weak at the ENTJ's dominant function. To make it simpler, in other words, one of the INFJ's weakest function happens to be the ENTJ's strongest suit, and that is extroverted thinking. And so, they are likely to have clashes. So because the ISFJ also has TE as their blind spot, so this point also applies to ISFJs as well. So as an ENTJ, communicating with someone who is TE inferior or having TE as a blind spot is really very tiring. Usually I just give up the debate altogether because I know that this discussion is futile. Going nowhere. So what do I mean by this? So for our first example, let's consider this teacher. She realizes that a lot of her students are always late for her class. So she wants to encourage this group of students to be punctual. So she says, "I see that a lot of you are late for class. This is really a bad habit. And what does this mean? This definitely is no good for your work. And over time, your boss is going to be very unhappy with you and might just fire you." But I'm always on time, and I gave you my all. So I am sure there are a lot of teachers who use this kind of logic to encourage their students. From the ENTJ's point of view, this is not proper logic. Why? Because the person might be late for your class, but that doesn't mean that he will be late in the future. It's just like a particular son can be very rude to his parents, but that does not mean that he's going to be rude to the people outside his family. It's only selectively rude to his parents. So in a similar line of argument, the students might be just selectively late for your class. And even if they are late for every other class of other lecturers, it does not mean that in the future they are going to be late. So from the point of view of the ENTJ, this reasoning is unsound. So let me give you another example. Imagine you are a fortune teller. So a lot of the NI users, such as the INFJ, may likely be fortune tellers. So I have encountered one such fortune teller who has TE as her blind spot. She tells me that she never ever reads her Aquarian's luck. So Aquarian may come to her and ask her if he is going to win Toto or ever going to win Toto or strike lottery. She says that she will never read these kind of questions. So I asked her why. Why don't you do so? And her explanation is, if I tell the person that he is never going to win lottery, he might try to prove me wrong by deliberately trying to buy until he strikes. Well, obviously, from the ENTJ's point of view, this logic is very unsound. Who do you think you are? Why would a person deliberately try to buy lottery until they strike just to prove you wrong? It doesn't make sense. So as you can see from these two examples that I've given, the INFJ, when communicating with the ENTJ, especially when trying to reason, might give reasonings that the ENTJ immediately sees flaws in. It's not that the INFJ is wrong, it's just that TE does not function this way. And unfortunately for the ENTJ, if they really treat you as an important person, they want to correct you. Otherwise, they just leave you alone.
Leave her alone!
So the INFJ may understand this and try to please the ENTJ. However, their blind spot is still TE. It's very difficult for them to master TE at all. So maybe as a progression of their relationship, the INFJ may start to reason less and less. And what I see is this is going to head towards an unhealthy, one-sided relationship. No good. No good. And now, let's come to potential problem number 4. Potential problem number 4 is the problem of equality.
Based on justice and equality.
From the point of view of the ENTJ, equality is very important. ENTJ seeks equivalence and seeks justice. So in a relationship, the ENTJ would like to have a relationship whereby sometimes I take the leader and sometimes I want to be the follower. Does it sound very surprising? While the ENTJ is likely to be a leader at work, in a relationship, he would like to take on different roles. However, in most of my personal interactions with INFJs, I find that they are more passive than active, although many claim that in a relationship, they will learn or they will be dominant. However, I have not seen them in a relationship yet, nor have I personally been in a relationship with INFJs, so I am not too sure whether they can assume this role of leadership whenever it comes to a relationship. So I mentioned that there are 4 potential landmines between the INFJ and the ENTJ when they are in a relationship. So if you are an INFJ or an ENTJ and you are considering the other half as your potential partner, then think about this potential landmine and try to solve the problem. I personally believe that it is possible for all types to come together and form a relationship. However, some pairs just need much more effort and the potential that they may fail may be quite great, especially when you don't think things over.
Make it work. Go, go, go. Do it. Go so. Work, work, work.
However, despite the 4 potential landmines between the INFJ and the ENTJ, there is one very big saving grace, and that is NI, introverted intuition. So both the INFJ and the ENTJ are NI users, so they are likely to understand each other quite well. And NI users tend to use a lot of analogies, so the INFJ and the ENTJ in that regard will enjoy a conversation with each other quite a lot. Also, because NI has this ability to find order in chaos, so both the INFJ and ENTJ are going to have a very refreshing point of view of what is happening around them. And both of these types will get to learn a lot from each other when they have a discussion of their worldviews. Well, regardless of whether you are an INTJ, INFJ or ENTJ, I hope that this episode is useful for you. Remember, I am speaking from the point of view of an ENTJ, like how an ENTJ views an INFJ in a relationship, and what are the potential problems from the ENTJ's point of view. So if you would like to see your own MBTI type discussed, do comment below. And if you have not subscribed, do consider subscribing. We produce a lot of MBTI videos. Okay, I am going to sign off now, and I'll see you again in my next episode. Goodbye. Bye.